really good. But the last person I want to talk about, who was no question about it, very good last night, Tyrese Maxey, leading scorer in the game, 33 points. I will never not be impressed by what a good shooter he is. I just simply will never not be impressed. Like every time he shoots it, it floors me how good he is. Like it's one of the most, I covered Jalen Hurts, who jumped from year 1 to year 2 and was unbelievable. Maxey has taken that same leap in his career as a shooter. He'll probably get a similar contract or more money because of it. But last night stepped up, to your point about manufacturing wins, wasn't good in game 1, stepped up, helped him win game 2. What was your takeaway overall from Maxey?
Yeah, I mean, to that point about his shooting, there was a moment in the first half where he hit a corner 3 where he's on the move, fading into the corner, basically falling out of bounds as he catches it, and off balance, somehow squares his shoulders, knocks down a 3. And I said to Rich Hoffman as it's happening, I was like, for how difficult that shot is, it's unbelievable how much confidence I have that he's going to make that. And the transformation he's undergone as a shooter, it's not just that he's a great shooter now, it's that he came into the league and was not willing to take a lot of these shots. It's a lot of like, they had to coax him into, or at least it felt like this. Maybe there's more than we know. And the coaching staff was like, we don't want you taking threes and you got to prove it and this and that. And he's alluded to, like, he did have to work his way up the totem pole in order to get more leeway as a shooter. But like, even still, there were open shot opportunities that I know the coaches would have wanted him to take that he just wouldn't take as a rookie. And so to see him grow from there to be a guy you just simply cannot leave open. Like it is not an option to say, we're going to let Tyrese Maxey try to beat us, because he will beat you. Like it is not, he might beat you. He will beat you. He's going to make open shots. And like, that is sort of the problem with the configuration on defense the Nets have. You go back and watch the tape, there are a lot of possessions where he's just standing there in the corner open or standing on the wing open. And it's like, you're going to leave him one pass away or a skip pass away wide open. This guy has consistently been one of the best shooters in the league for like almost 2 years now, at least like a year and a half, I would say. So for him to get to that level has been such a huge development for this team. It has essentially rendered those conversations about should Melton start, should Tyrese come off the bench, they're all meaningless, because you cannot take that level of shooter off the floor. Like the transformation that has on the offense, both in the half court and transition, is just so significant. And like, he should be honestly really proud of the progress that he's made, because I mean, that kid's going to make a ton of money and he is capable of these games. Like I said at some point on Press Row last night, I was like, it just feels like a Tyrese avalanche is coming at some point. Just one of those games where he's in a groove, he's hitting these tough shots. And so to see him hit all kinds of different shots on relocations, off the dribble, just standstill threes, where those are just practice shots for him. It's so impressive, having seen where he started from the baseline as a shooter. And look, I just assume this is the future moving forward. He doesn't strike me as a kid who's going to stop putting in the work or stop caring about his craft. We can honestly at some point start getting into what's the next evolution for him. Like, what's the next step for him as a player? I just think he's a super impressive shooter and scorer. I think the other side of it, though, is Cam Thomas on Brooklyn's bench must be so jealous, because there was a point where Tyrese had like 23 points, 0 rebounds, and 0 assists.
I know,
it was like the pure bucket getter stat line. It was so funny.
Man, and this is going to sound corny, but I really firmly believe this. There is something about Tyrese in front of the Philly crowd too. Like, I've seen him do it enough where it really does feel like when the crowd is going, Tyrese like builds off that and he takes it to another level. He just does. Like, Joel's awesome. Joel is an unbelievable talent. Obviously, Harden is too. I've covered enough Sixers home games now where I can just tell, to your point about the Avalanche, Tyrese truly does embrace like that. Oh, the crowd's going, like, I'm going to get him going even more. And then when they're going, he'll come down the court and he'll do the heat check and he'll make 2 threes and like it'll explode. Like, it's just a very unique thing that I've seen in my experience of the games I've covered. I don't know if it's like that on the road. I'm not at the road games, but it just seems like at home, Tyrese can be a next level player because, and I think some athletes just have it and some don't. He seems to have it in him of like, the moment's big. This is my chance to do something exciting and get everybody cheer. All right, I'm going to go do that. And I think it is a special quality in him. When you talk about his next step, look, I don't think he's going to grow 4 inches and put on 40 pounds. Like he's always going to be undersized. And I've compared him to Lou Williams. I don't mean that in an insulting way. It's just he reminds me of him in like his stature and his ability to just score and be a bucket getter and all those things. So I don't know what his next step is, but I do think that like his personality and his just complete willingness to like rise to the moment when you can feel it in the arena is definitely a special quality. He can shoot, he's fast, all those things, but it does also feel like he has in him somewhere the ability to be that guy. Maybe that's it. And maybe that is his next step.
Well, and I do think there's, if you're talking about the relationship between him and the fans, I do think there's some of that same dynamic with Jalen Hurts, right? Where people
Yeah.
could see early on that he was talented, but clearly had work to do, like was not the finished product. And, there's reasonable skepticism about how good he was going to be. But they had always heard he's a hard worker. And then you see that hard work turn into results, and it like naturally builds that trust, that faith, that like love for the athlete that is different than, like signing a free agent who's just very good, or
Right.
drafting a guy, top 5, top 10 in a draft, and that guy's as good as you expected. To see somebody be kind of a developmental success story, those guys endear themselves in a way that I think it's hard for like the superstar star level guys to do. Now, obviously Jalen coming off a MVP caliber season, he is now in that superstar category, but that was an ascent to that level. That was not like, he did not arrive with those expectations. We're talking about using him as a wildcat guy when he comes in, or he's battling just to be on the field at all. And so I think Tyrese's story is very similar, where he comes in, it's like, oh, wow, this guy fell in the draft who's a good talent, but's got a lot to work on. And not only has he improved on some of his weaknesses, I mean, he's far exceeded any kind of expectations I think people could have had for him when he was drafted. And I think that plays into, the
Well,
love that he gets from the fans.
and I think another similarity between the two is they've improved at things that you're not supposed to be able to improve at, right? Like in football, if your accuracy is a problem, generally coming out of the draft, they discuss that as, I don't know if you can fix that. Like there's a reason the Josh Allen thing was such an anomaly. In shooting, I mean, you could speak to this more. I guess you can improve as a shooter, but I didn't think you could go from being like an okay shooter to being what Maxey is. Like it feels like the specific things that they've really improved on are unique in that regard in terms of their ability to go from being just okay at them. And frankly, in Hurts's case, maybe not even okay, to now being elite. Like Hurts is an elite accuracy guy, and Maxey is clearly an elite 3-point shooter.
Yeah, I mean, you can definitely improve as a shooter. It's one of the reasons that people pay more attention, or scouts pay more attention to free throw numbers compared to college 3-point numbers, because it's the underlying like, okay, mechanics are good. He's a consistent free throw guy. We can work with that and build out to the 3-point line. But this dramatic of a jump is definitely very rare. Like going from, all right, he's like a low 30s, maybe mid 30s at best guy to, and somebody who's really only taking a few shots a game, to a high volume, high efficiency, and honestly, like high difficulty shot maker from 3. That's a totally different level. And that's not something you see very often. And that speaks highly of his work ethic. And, people talk about work ethic, but it's also important that he focused on the right things, right? Like you can work really hard, but not do things that are actually productive and beneficial to your career. I think he clearly had the right people around him, and he identified the right things to say, this is what I need to work on the most and get better at to be, like an everyday starter type player for this team. And now he took that role and he ran with it. So, kudos to him and everybody who's worked with him on getting better.
Well, I think to kind of bring it full circle, we could agree that in addition to the timeout by Doc, the development of Maxey, another big move by Doc to turn this team into
Wait, on that front, speaking of, so Sam Cassell walked through the media room
yeah.
last night as Tyrese is giving his press conference and was yelling, "My protege,
Yep.
Tyrese Maxey," and was just so excited. And
Well,
that had to be fuel for all the Cassell should be the head coach people. But
as someone that watched Shane Steichen stump for a head coaching job for basically an entire calendar year, you cannot tell me Sam Cassell didn't stand out when the media is going. And when he's saying my protege, he's basically being like, hey, everybody, I'm the reason that guy's good. Just a quick heads up in case anybody wasn't aware. So I always appreciate some good self-promotion. So nice job by Sam Cassell there. But all right, so they're up 2-0. Kyle goes to Brooklyn now. So that'll be fun, I'm sure, for you. Get a chance to be in the city. You get some actual things in your house now. Every time I see you, there's less things behind you. So hopefully you'll be in a nice big hotel room with lots of stuff. And they'll try to go up 3-0. And according to you, the series should be over at that point. So hopefully, after they go up 3-0, this thing's in the bag and done.